Have you ever wondered what really breaks a narcissist? Not the screaming matches, not the dramatic breakups, but the quiet, everyday moments that pierce through their paper-thin ego like a blade slipping behind the mask. In today's video, we're diving into 8 everyday things that shatter a narcissist's false self, not with rage, but with silence, stillness, and truth. From the unblinking stare of a child to the calm indifference of someone who's moved on, each moment is like a crack in their carefully crafted illusion. Because it's not the noise that destroys them. It's the absence of attention, the quiet laughter they weren't meant to hear, the animal that just won't come near. These are the invisible betrayals that hurt the most. If you've ever loved, lived with, or worked for a narcissist, this is a video you do not want to miss. You'll understand why narcissists fear indifference more than hatred and why being forgotten is their ultimate nightmare. Stick with me till the very end, and if this video helps you make sense of your own toxic experiences, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who needs clarity. Because awareness is the first step toward healing. 1. When they're no longer flattered. The crisis begins. When the narcissistic supply runs dry. For a narcissist, compliments aren't just pleasant, they're vital fuel. Praise is their lifeline, the supply that nourishes their fragile ego, the validation that tells them they're still special, still superior, still significant. They live in a constant state of hunger for admiration, craving the applause, the approving glances, even fake flattery. But what happens when no one is interested in feeding their ego anymore? When they walk into a room and no one turns to look, when they boast about an achievement and are met with silence, or worse, a disinterested nod, that's when the fear inside them starts to rise. You must understand, for a narcissist, self-worth doesn't come from within. They don't possess a steady, natural sense of self-esteem. Instead, their identity is built entirely on how others react to them. If no one confirms that they're brilliant, attractive, talented, or powerful, they begin to feel invisible. And in their inner world, not being noticed is just as devastating as being rejected. When the flattery fades, the narcissist feels like they're slowly vanishing. They may react by boasting more aggressively, demanding attention in louder or more obnoxious ways, or switching to emotional manipulation, perhaps pretending to be hurt, just to gain sympathy. No one cares about me anymore. I'm always the one left out. These statements aren't genuine expressions of pain. They're tactics to reignite the attention that has gone cold. And if the people around them still don't respond the way they expect, they may turn angry, bitter, even vengeful. They'll start belittling others, mocking their success just to pull the spotlight back onto themselves. I'm better than them anyway. That sentence may never be spoken out loud, but it's a core belief buried deep within. And anyone who threatens that belief even through silence is seen as a threat. Here's the painful truth. Narcissists don't truly want to be loved, they want to be worshipped. They don't want mutual, balanced relationships. They want an audience. So when you stop playing the role of the fan, when you no longer react with awe to their self-aggrandizing stories, when you're simply not impressed anymore, they're not just disappointed. They feel erased from your life. This is also why they often prefer new relationships over deep ones. New people are easier to impress, easier to manipulate, easier to fool. New admirers haven't yet seen the cracks in the mask, but as the excitement fades, as the praise quiets down, and as you begin to question instead of applaud, they know their time is up. Not being flattered to them isn't just about missing a compliment. It's about losing control, losing their central role, feeling replaceable. And for someone whose identity depends on external validation, that's nothing short of collapse. 2. When you don't forgive the way they expect. A narcissist always believes you'll come back. No matter how many times they hurt you, no matter how hollow and repetitive their apologies become, they still believe one thing. You'll forgive. You'll stay. You'll endure one more round. Because for them, forgiveness isn't about healing, it's about control. Forgiveness in the eyes of healthy people is a sign of compassion, maturity, and the ability to let go. But in the narcissist's world, forgiveness is nothing more than an open door, an invitation to come back and hurt you again, only this time more subtly, more deeply. They don't need your forgiveness to feel peace. They need it to reassure themselves that they still have power over you. So the moment you say, enough, the moment you go silent, disappear, ignore their messages, shed no tears, ask no questions, seek no explanations, that's when their internal world truly begins to crack. Not because they're grieving the loss of you, not because they miss the love, but because they've lost the ability to control you. They can't comprehend how you're able to walk away without looking back. They were sure you were addicted to them, to their promises, the emotional roller coasters, the toxic love story they carefully scripted. They thought you couldn't exist without them. Most of all, they believed you'd always forgive, because you're the good one. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your empathy for dependency, your forgiveness for a pattern they could exploit again and again. Until one day you changed the script. You didn't explode. You didn't retaliate. You simply left. Firmly. Quietly. With no need to explain how much they hurt you because you no longer needed them to understand anything at all. And that silence. That is a narcissist's worst nightmare. There's no drama to lure them back in. No argument to manipulate. No forgiveness to weaponize. Only a void they can't fill. Not with charm, not with promises, not even with guilt. They'll try to come back. They'll recycle old tricks, maybe play the sweet beginning card or act helpless and broken. They'll say, I've changed, or no one gets me like you do, but this time you know better. Oh, and that is what destroys them. Because here's the truth. A narcissist cannot stand being forgotten. They don't crave love, they crave attention. Without the spotlight, they panic. Without you as the audience, there is no stage left for them to perform on. They're not grieving the loss of an ex. They're enraged at losing their emotional supply, the person who always forgave, always believed, always came back, even after swearing not to. But this time you're not coming back. You're not forgiving them the way they expect. You're choosing yourself. You're choosing peace. You're choosing to shut the door, not to punish them, but to survive. And to a narcissist, that is the cruelest betrayal of all. Not because you are cruel, but because they cannot handle a version of you who has finally woken up. 3. When you move on without their approval. Nothing unsettles a narcissist more than seeing you move forward without them. You start rebuilding your life. You find peace, healthy relationships, new achievements, or maybe you just become genuinely happy, all without their involvement, guidance, or approval. To a healthy person, that's a beautiful sign of healing and growth. But to a narcissist, it's betrayal. They don't care that you're happy. They care that you're happy without me being part of the picture. You're thriving in your career. You've entered a new nurturing relationship. You're growing emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. You've fallen in love with life again, prioritizing your well-being, reclaiming your joy. Amazing, but only if they get some credit for it. Narcissists live under the illusion that if you succeed, it's because of me. If you heal, it's thanks to me. If you evolve, it started with me. They want to be remembered as the person who shaped who you are now, even if what they actually did was break you down. But when you rise without them, when you rebuild without ever mentioning them, they feel invisible. And to a narcissist, being invisible is the most brutal form of erasure. They don't grieve the loss of your love. They grieve the loss of their control over your story. You don't come running back to share your wins. You don't credit them in your inspirational transformation. You don't thank them. You don't include them in any chapter of the new life you're writing. And that's what triggers their collapse. When you move forward without needing their approval, you reclaim a power they thought was eternally theirs. They'll react. They might try to pull you down by devaluing your growth. They'll scoff, say you're fake, dismiss your progress as temporary. They might whisper to others, it's just a phase they're pretending, it won't last. Because if they can't be part of your journey, they'll try to redefine your journey as meaningless. Not because they truly believe you don't deserve happiness, but because they can't stand the truth that you found it without them. Do you know what drives them crazier than your success? It's the fact that you don't show it off to them. You're not trying to prove anything anymore. You're not seeking their validation. You've stopped caring about their opinion altogether. You're not doing anything against them. You're simply living for yourself. And that, in a narcissist's mind, is the most threatening act of rebellion. They used to believe you'd come back someday just to show them you'd finally made it. They assumed you'd always want their recognition. But you don't. You walked away, found your worth within, and shattered the illusion of power they built their identity upon. No more control. No more manipulation through silent judgment or backhanded praise. No more, "I'm proud of you" used like a leash. Now they know you're truly out. Have you started walking forward on your own and found light without anyone's approval? If so, you're doing something incredibly brave, something many still fear. Don't stop here. The next 4 emotional triggers are coming up. If this video resonates with your journey, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who's reclaiming their story too. Because you don't need the approval of the one who broke you to start living fully again. 4. Being seen through by a highly intuitive child. We often assume that children are easy to charm and control. Just flash a smile, offer them a toy, say a few sweet words, and they'll light up with joy. That's the assumption many narcissists carry throughout their lives, because in their world, every interaction is a performance, and they believe they're the master of the stage. But one day they meet a different kind of child, a child who is intuitive, calm, quiet, and resistant to charm. No giggles, no smiles, no admiration. Just a stare. A deep, still gaze, unafraid, unmoved, that cuts right through the narcissist's mask like a blade of truth. And in that moment, the collapse begins. The narcissist can't explain why they suddenly feel anxious or unsettled, why a child's silent gaze stirs up so much discomfort. But they know something's wrong. They feel it in their gut they're being seen through. And for a narcissist, that's terrifying. Because that gaze, it's something they can't control. Intuitive children, especially those raised in unstable homes or around narcissistic caregivers, often develop a rare sensitivity that adults overlook. They don't rely on words or status. They read energy. They're not fooled by superficial charm or charisma. When something feels off, they don't overthink it. They just instinctively react. They pull away. They withdraw. They keep their distance. And to a narcissist, this quiet rejection from a child is a devastating blow to the ego. Why? Because it affirms the deepest fear they try so hard to bury. I'm not lovable, not even to a child. It shakes the foundation of their false self. In their mind, a child should be easy to win over, sweet, malleable, eager to please. But when that child offers no reaction, no laughter, no connection, no trust, only silent observation, the narcissist begins to unravel. And it gets worse if the child cries when they come near, shows unusual anger, or physically avoids them. These instinctive responses cannot be controlled, and that inability to manipulate is what triggers the narcissist's internal panic. Some narcissists, when faced with a child who sees through them, will lash out. They turn to emotional abuse or even physical intimidation, not because the child did anything wrong, but because the narcissist cannot tolerate rejection, especially not from someone so small and powerless. To them, it's not just rejection, it's humiliation. A child who holds their gaze, who doesn't play the game, who refuses to validate the narcissist's illusions, that's not just defiance. It's a quiet, powerful declaration. I see you, and I'm not impressed. And for a narcissist, that's more than enough to send their carefully constructed identity into free fall. 5. When you stop reacting. To a narcissist, your emotional reactions are fuel for their ego. Every time you cry, scream, argue, plead, or break down, they feel important. They feel powerful. They feel in control. They feed off your emotions, not to empathize, but to manipulate. The more intense, dramatic, and emotional you become, the more alive they feel. They don't care how you feel, only that they are still the center of your world. But one day, you stop reacting. You stop replying to texts. You stop arguing. You stop asking why. You stop trying to fix things. You just go silent. And to the narcissist, that's worse than hatred. Because hatred is still an emotion, and emotions mean attention. But indifference, detachment, calm, silence, that is a quiet but powerful declaration. I don't need you anymore. You no longer matter. Silence doesn't just take away their control, it makes them feel invisible. And for the fragile ego of a narcissist, being ignored is equivalent to being erased. They start to panic. They might provoke drama, send baiting messages, insult you, or create chaos just to make you react. Because if you react even in anger, they know, I still exist in their mind. But when you don't respond, they lose their primary source of supply. They don't know what you're thinking, how you feel, or if you even care. That uncertainty torments them more than any confrontation ever could. One narcissist once told me in therapy, I'd rather she scream at me, throw things, curse me out, anything but that silence. Her silence made me feel like I never existed. Because silence gives them nothing to work with, no words to twist, no actions to distort, no feelings to drain. Just emptiness, and they can't control emptiness. If you're still crying, they think you're weak. If you're still angry, they know they still have power. But when you have nothing left to give, when your emotional energy is no longer theirs to take, you've broken free. No dramatic goodbye, no closure, just emotional absence, and that's the clearest ending of all. And that to a narcissist hurts more than any fight. They'll try to reactivate you with fake apologies, guilt trips, memories, or flying monkeys, anything to stir a reaction to reopen the emotional loop. But it's all a desperate attempt to revive a supply that's long gone. The quieter you become, the more unhinged they get. The calmer you are, the more powerless they feel. And eventually, when they realize you're not going to react anymore, they're forced to face their deepest fear. I'm no longer the main character in their story. You've walked off the stage, you've stepped out of the script, you've closed the curtain on a performance they thought would never end. No reaction, no performance. Just you reclaiming your peace and power. 6. When pets don't trust them. A silent but devastating blow to the narcissist. You might think it's a small thing that a barking dog or a cat that keeps its distance isn't a big deal. But to a narcissist, it's a blow to the ego that they can't explain away. They can manipulate people, but they can't manipulate animals, and that frightens them more than you realize. Narcissists live for control, controlling how you see them, how others perceive them, and how the world reacts to their presence. They wear layers of charm, humor, responsibility, even fake kindness, all crafted to hide the emptiness, selfishness, and emotional damage underneath. But animals don't see the mask. They sense energy. And if that energy is toxic, they stay away. You'll notice this in the smallest ways. A normally sweet dog growls when the narcissist enters the room. A friendly cat suddenly hides under the couch the moment they appear. There's no spoken accusation, no obvious confrontation, just an instinctive recoil from a being that can't be fooled. And that shakes the narcissist to their core, because deep down, they know. They know they're not truly trustworthy. They know something in them is warped, misaligned, broken. They know they're performing, pretending. And the fact that a speechless creature still knows makes them feel exposed. It's like being seen naked by something pure, not judged, but simply known. And that kind of silent exposure hurts. So instead of self-reflecting, instead of asking, why is my energy causing this reaction, they attack. They'll scold the dog, kick the cat, act indifferent, or even tell you the pet is weird or has issues. In their world, the blame is always external, even when the other is an innocent animal. Here's the deeper issue. The rejection from an animal isn't just about being disliked. It's a denial of the invisible power narcissists believe they have the ability to be loved, obeyed, or at least admired. When a pet refuses to engage, the narcissist is reminded that not everything can be controlled. And to someone addicted to control, that's unbearable. Survivors of narcissistic abuse often say that the pet's behavior was the first warning sign. A normally calm dog would become tense around them. A purring cat would leap away and disappear the second the narcissist walked in. At first, it seemed minor, but in hindsight, it was a red flag. The animal sensed something that the human heart, clouded by hope or love, ignored. The narcissist might fool the world, but not the pure heart of a pet. And that's why being distrusted by an animal wounds them so deeply, because it reminds them they can't hide forever. That no matter how many people they manipulate or how many masks they wear, someone or something will always know. And sometimes that truth is revealed in the quiet gaze of a creature who sees right through them. 7. When the narcissist isn't invited to a group event. To a normal person, not being invited to a gathering, a small dinner, a friendly get-together, or a casual family event might sting a little, but it quickly passes. However, to a narcissist, it's not just being left out. It's a direct blow to their fragile ego and their constant need for validation. When a narcissist finds out they weren't on the guest list, they don't just feel hurt. They feel humiliated. To them, every social event is a stage, a place to perform, to shine, to be admired. And the idea that you or anyone would hold a gathering without including them is seen as betrayal. They can't comprehend why they weren't invited because in their self-centered reality, they believe they should always be the main character in everyone's story. The pain doesn't come from being absent. It comes from being excluded. They'll erupt in silent rage, masked by passive-aggressive behaviors, vague status updates, snide remarks, guilt-tripping messages, or creating their own rival event to compete. They might post cryptic messages on social media about fake friendships or knowing who's real. But behind those words is a deep, gnawing pain, the realization that the spotlight has moved on without them. It gets worse if the event turns out to be joyful, well-attended, and shared publicly. If people they consider their allies are seen laughing and enjoying the moment without them, the narcissist won't just be angry at the host, they'll feel betrayed by everyone involved. Even bystanders. To them, it's not just a party, it's a public announcement that they're no longer important, and that shatters their illusion of control. Instead of stepping back or self-reflecting, the narcissist will try to regain power. Maybe they'll stir up drama, spread rumors, or try to discredit the host. Maybe they'll play the victim. I don't know why they hate me. I guess I'm always the outsider in a desperate bid to manipulate sympathy. Sometimes they'll confront you directly. Why wasn't I invited, but not because they want an honest answer. They just want you to feel guilty. Internally, this situation breaks the fantasy they've constructed about themselves, that they're always loved, always admired, always central. Being left out means they are no longer the lead character, and that threatens their entire identity. Every laugh heard at that event, every photo shared online, becomes a knife to their ego. Proof that the world can move on and thrive without them. This is why, if you've ever gone no contact or started distancing yourself from a narcissist and chose to host an event without them, you should expect backlash. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you dared to redefine their place in your life. And for them, not being in control of the narrative is unforgivable. 8. When the narcissist is exposed. There is nothing that terrifies a narcissist more than being exposed. They can endure criticism. They can manipulate accusations. They can even twist the narrative to paint themselves as the victim. But when the truth about them, the real person behind the mask, is laid bare in front of the very people they tried to control, manipulate, and impress, that's when they descend into deep internal panic. A narcissist builds an entire world on carefully curated lies. They craft flawless personas. The ideal partner, the model child, the devoted employee, the trustworthy friend. They know how to perform in public. They appear kind, attentive, insightful. But behind closed doors lies control manipulation, emotional abuse, and chaos understood only by those closest to them. So when someone, whether a friend, an ex, or a former colleague, dares to stand up and say, "I've seen who they really are," the unraveling begins. The narcissist doesn't fear being misunderstood. They fear being understood. Because once others begin connecting the dots between erratic behavior, emotional abuse, and psychological games, the mask they worked so hard to build can no longer shield them. The narcissist's first response to exposure is never remorse. It's attack. They may lash out, distort the truth, or fabricate stories to destroy the credibility of the whistleblower. They'll shout things like, "I was misunderstood. She's crazy. He's just jealous of me." They resort to every psychological defense they've internalized, especially Darvo. Deny, attack, and reverse. Victim and offender. And if you're not emotionally grounded, you may be pulled into a whirlwind of self-doubt and confusion. However, when the truth becomes undeniable, when others start seeing it too, when patterns emerge, when stories align, they have nowhere to hide. This is when the narcissist begins to crumble inside. Not because they feel guilt or seek redemption, but because they've lost control over how others perceive them. And for a narcissist, losing control over their carefully constructed image is as agonizing as losing their very sense of self. As you've just seen, it's not the screaming matches, the dramatic confrontations, or explosive breakups that break a narcissist's heart. It's the quiet, everyday moments that carry the most power. A look that's no longer impressed. A silence that needs no explanation. A step forward taken without their approval. A moment when you choose not to react, not to forgive, not to return. These subtle moments hit hardest because they take away the one thing narcissists crave most: control. If you've ever felt guilty for not forgiving, ashamed for walking away silently, or blamed for thriving without them, just know you did nothing wrong. You simply chose yourself. You broke free from a cycle that never deserved to keep you trapped. And if any part of this video reflects your truth, if you've seen yourself in these 8 quiet shifts, then please know you are not alone. This community is here for you to support, validate, and walk with you on your path to healing. Drop a comment below. Which part of this video resonated most with you? And don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell and stay connected because your healing deserves consistent care. Healing is not a destination. It's a journey, and today you took another powerful step. I'll see you in the next video, and as always, let the healing begin.